Talk with authors, artists, and entertainers. Hope you enjoy the show, and please check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/AdamMesser or on www.theadammessershow.com. And thank you for tuning in. All right, everybody. So we're back. Can't believe it's already been an hour, John.
That was a fast hour.
I know, man. I know. So if you're just tuning in, this is WRU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And I'm your host, Adam Messer, here on the Adam Messer Show with my special guest, author John Stamp, who's also a good friend of mine. So
Hello.
I'm excited to have you back. That first hour, man, we were just kind of just a little off the rails, talking about, writing and publishing and
grilling
and roller dogs. And I know it's so funny. I know I threw you out in left field with that one. You're like, what?
Well, you got me with the hot dog, with the hamburger recipe, because you were absolutely right. But, there's gourmet. It's a gourmet burger recipes. I have no idea.
No, it was just funny because and I wasn't trying to throw you under the bus with it. I just thought it was funny because we like stuff that's familiar, even if we don't understand it's familiar. We're all creatures of habit. Like, I subconsciously go to work and drive on autopilot. I know how to get there. I'm like looking around. I'm not like, checked out, but I'm also thinking about other things. I'm listening to audiobooks. I might be listening to music, and like if something is off, like, out of whack, then I'm like, what's going on here? Yeah, what's up?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's funny how you can go on autopilot with certain things. And then you show up and it's like, what was I been doing for the last 20 minutes?
Yeah. Like I have a habit of I listen. It's so crazy. I'm one of those people that I listen to ambient white noise or whatever in the background when I'm sleeping. And so I've been listening to audiobooks, but sometimes I'll fall asleep watching like, a show or whatever. And I found out that there are other people that do that. And I was like, I had to know that I'm not the only person, right? But you always wonder, like, am I the only weirdo that does this kind of thing,
Oh, no. That's a thing.
Oh, I didn't know. And apparently there are like people that watch Futurama and they call them Futurama sleepers. Like they'll watch Futurama and they'll fall asleep watching Futurama. And I know it just sounds crazy, but like I'll do the same thing. I'll just set something up and I'll listen to it, and then if I get tired of it, I'll change it. And so I'm such a night owl that once the sun goes down, I wake up. So I just don't fall asleep when I'm like watching a show or doing something. I can stay up all day and then I could stay up all night long if I let myself. Like I have to consciously force myself to go to sleep at night. Very interesting. Do you actually are you actually allergic to sunlight?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No. Okay. I mean, it'd be cool to have have that vampire deal. I just don't think I'd like the blood part. So. Yeah. Well, there's other
kinds of energy vampires, and like there's electric vampires, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And,
alleged. Yeah, it seems kind of gross.
Yeah.
I always figured if I had to pick, I'd rather be the werewolf. I think the werewolf's kind of.
Oh yeah.
It's a little more fun.
I wrote werewolves into book 2 and 3 of Blood Thrasher.
Yeah,
and
that was a good good book. That first one.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I wrote them in as like dogs of war type soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, that's kind of like a new trope that people are doing or whatever. I thought it was really cool, and I've always liked the idea of vampires versus whomever.
Yeah.
I just like that, that monster fantasy type stuff. I've as a kid growing up watching those movies, and I like the and I'm not knocking any of the new stuff. I'm not. I don't ever like to knock anybody's stuff, y'all. But I like that kind of like a scary type monster deal, and it was so funny because I had a guest on, my cousin Sarah and her daughter Lucy were on, and we were talking about Scooby Doo. You remember classic Scooby Doo cartoons where they're always chasing the monster?
Oh yeah.
Well, Lucy, she's like 8 years old, and she goes, "Well, it's weird because the monster's always the person." I was like, "Yeah, that's how it is in real life too."
It blew my kid's mind when I dug up an old Scooby Doo Batman team up.
Oh yeah, the Adam West
internet.
Batman one.
They used to have that, and like the what was it, Captain Caveman and Scooby Doo team
Oh
up.
yeah.
And stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Those are hilarious.
Yeah. That I don't know, man. I loved watching Scooby Doo as a kid, and like the Munsters and like the classic monster movies, like that kind of stuff. Elvira, you know.
Elvira, yeah.
Oh yeah. There was one called a guy named Svengoolie. You seen the ones where they'll, like Elvira, where they're the host of the show and then they play the movie and they talk about like,
yeah, host the old monster movies.
Right.
Yeah, I remember. I think the reason I like werewolves so much is that Stephen King adaptation, Silver Bullet. Freaked me out so much as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wolfen. There was this movie called Wolfen. I don't know if you remember. Did you ever see that one?
That's going way back. That's like you got to find that on the Prime Video archives.
Yeah. We saw it at the drive-in theater, and at the end of it, y'all, I mean, like it's been out for 40 something years, so I can give the ending away, but they kill the werewolf by decapitating it, and the werewolf's head rolls down these like marble stairs, and I was like probably 4 at the time, and that image has been burned into my brain ever since.
I'll tell you, not completely traumatic related, but one of the first things I remember seeing on TV was waking up at night after I was maybe 3 years old, 3 or 4, and I walked downstairs to see the footage. What's the Bigfoot, the old Bigfoot footage? Walking in the creek or something. and it was not nearly as traumatic as a decapitated werewolf, but I was like, what's that thing?
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because people, and I get this from time to time, I'm sure you do too, but people ask, like, where do you get your ideas from?
Oh yeah, that's the first thing. The first thing is like, how do you find time to do that? And then the second one is like, how do you get the ideas to actually do that? Where does it come from? That shred of an idea to 100,000 words that's a big swing.
I think of it as like a big gumbo or jambalaya or whatever, like a hodgepodge stew, because you can be inspired by anything. You can be inspired by doing the work. I mean, like we were talking about, you go to the gym consistently, just going to the gym. Like there's days where you probably don't even feel like tying your shoes and going,
Yeah.
But just going there, you're like, start getting into it and start getting into the flow, and you're like, I could do this.
Yeah, just do the work.
And
I've had books that come because of like a headline I read, or books that come because I come up with an idea for a character that I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
Some of I think the band Korn was responsible for Wraith the Shelter Mount.
Yeah.
I think that's like the soundtrack for that book.
Dude.
I got the whole thing. The whole idea for the book came while I was mowing the lawn, rocking out to Korn.
Dude. That's like, awesome.
Here we go. Yeah, let's go dark.
That's awesome. Hey, that's a world first, everybody. This is the first time anybody's ever heard that.
What that what a book has a soundtrack?
That your book came from Korn, cutting the grass.
They hold up. I mean, it was
they're pretty cool
music, but it still holds up.
Dude, I moved to Savannah in '96. I drove down here. I was 19. I drove down here in an '84 Toyota Tercel hatchback, right? And I had the Metallica Black album on tape, cassette tape. And luckily, one of the few features that my little junky car had was a working cassette tape stereo. And man, I listened to the Black album the whole way down. It's like 12-hour drive from Cincinnati. 14 if you take your time or whatever. But I listen to it the whole way down, and then I'll do that sometimes too. Like I'll listen to music. I don't always listen to music when I'm writing though, but sometimes I do.
I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think too, doing the work, that's a big part of just getting it done. I mean, like I remember when we first talked about like your writing and all that. You would write 500 words a day. Before you start going to work, you'd actually be, on your computer or whatever, and just kind of set that time aside. And I always thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm inherently very lazy, so like I have to have that compartmentalized work time where it's just that's like you say, that's just what your head says when it comes to 6 o'clock in the morning. This is what we do now.
Yeah.
And then get everything else ready to go to work and get it done. But yeah, without that, I would never accomplish anything.
Yeah, I think that's, people ask like, what's the secret? And I think that's it. It's just doing the work. Show up.
Yeah, just doing it.
Do the work.
Yeah, because I mean, there's nothing. Nobody's gonna get on you when you don't. So it's like it's either you're gonna do it or you're not. And I think doing grad school really cemented that for me, just because like it was the same thing. Like nobody's gonna get on you if the professors don't care if you don't get your work done. You're just not there next semester. So.
I want to talk about that too, since you're talking, because I did my undergrad and my MBA, and I also did a Master of Information Systems, and I was older. I was 32 when I graduated my undergrad, and I was 34 and 36 when I graduated with my master's. And I heard, and I actually worked at a college for 10 years, helping students with financial aid. Yeah. And I heard a piece of advice, because, we always hear that, that actually the professors don't care. They don't. They really don't. And that's not a cliche. That is just a universal truth that I've seen time and time and time again, that they just don't care.
Well, I don't think it's a criticism of them either.
No.
I mean, you got 100 students to serve, and if somebody's not showing up to do the work, then they don't need to be there. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, and it's the same thing like when people say, well, I've got an idea for a book. I've heard that a million times too.
Yeah.
So the professor's going to be like, oh, yeah, your grandmother's dog's nephew died, right? I'm sorry to hear that. That kind of thing. They're going to hear, like, they've heard every excuse in the world. Not saying that it's not true that you might have had your grandma's dog's nephew died, but, whatever. So, but I heard this really great piece of advice, and I thought it made a lot of sense for doing the work, especially for young college students or, adult learners who are going back or whatever. The guy, and I don't know his name, it's just some dude off of TikTok again. I love the little TikTok stuff. The guy said that 30 minutes on the first day that you're assigned a project, could be a term paper or whatever, 30 minutes on that first day is worth more than 3 hours on the day that it's due.
Yeah, because it's all fresh.
Yep, it's fresh. And then, so like, say for instance, you've got an assignment that's due 3 days from now, right? If you wait until the third day right before the deadline, which most people that I know, most of the students that I work with, which was thousands of students, they would procrastinate and they would wait until the deadline. And I'm not saying I never procrastinated, because I did. There were times where I was like, it was like due at midnight and I was like 11:58 trying to hit the submit button.
I think procrastination was my major.
Yeah. But 30 minutes, like with writing, 30 minutes a day, if you're writing 100 words to 500 words, depends on how fast you write. I mean, there's been times where I've written like 1,000 words in 30 minutes, but there's also been times where I've written maybe 50 words in 30 minutes. But I think,
chips away.
Yeah, it's just doing that work, showing up.
Yep, that's the hardest part, because nobody's gonna know if you don't do it. You just won't. Your book won't be there. That's the only thing it is.
So everybody, you're tuning in today to WRU LP Savannah, Georgia. Speaking of doing the work, showing up, here we are. You're listening to us on WRU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. So, something else too, John, that I want to ask you what you think. with reading. Now, there's a couple like things that I want to hit on, like reading, and I want to talk about like publishing and stuff like that. But reading, do you have anything that you like to read in particular, or?
I stick to genre pretty much. It's usually sci-fi, fantasy, or the crime, like police procedural type stuff. But that's just on the fiction side. On the nonfiction side, I don't know if it counts as reading anymore, but like all my probably 90% of the time, if I'm reading a nonfiction, it's on Audible or something like that.
Yeah, me too.
Kind of feels like being at a lecture or a TED Talk.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Audiobook reading has the same effect on your brain as reading. It's just a different form of it. Because I'll give you an example. What if someone's visually impaired and they are not able to actually look at a book and read it? Mm-hmm. When they're listening to an audiobook, it's the same content. Does that not qualify? That's just something that I've always thought about, because you are listening to the book. A lot of times the author, especially nonfiction, the author will read the book for you. And your brain's processing it the same way. You're hearing the story. Like I love like nonfiction books on leadership and then just different books about people that are like the Matthew McConaughey Green Lights book.
That was a fantastic book.
Oh yeah,
that was really well done. And I was a little hesitant on that one because of all the hype that it was getting, but all that hype was completely worth it. So
oh yeah,
that was a great read.
Well, I picked up the ebook and the hardback, and then also the audiobook, because it was one of those books I just want to just kind of consume,
Yep.
And I ended up starting off with like the ebook. I went and picked up the paperback because I wanted to have like the physical book, and then I ended up picking up the audiobook afterwards because I was like, I really would, but I was getting to the point where I didn't have a whole lot of time to spend reading, but I have a good half an hour drive in the morning to work.
Yeah, that's the best time to soak stuff up.
Yeah. And so I use that time to listen to audiobooks or like a podcast or something like that. And, and I feel like that's a good way to do it. I love books on reading, like about leadership and, self-development and that kind of thing.
Yeah, usually it's biographies and history stuff for me. I just finished on the fiction side Andy Weir's Hail Mary.
Oh, okay.
It was a fantastic
I
book.
saw that. I didn't. He's the one that wrote The Martian, right?
Yeah, and that follow up. It wasn't related to The Martian at all, but it was a really good. He's one of those guys, kind of like Crichton, that digs so much science and engineering into that book.
Yeah.
They were great. You did. I mean, it was just as good as The Martian.
Oh, that's great. I didn't read The Martian. I just saw clips for the movie, but I never watched it. But the story that struck me was that he started off as an indie writer, an author, and then it got picked up by a bigger house.
Yeah, so the competitive side is like, that guy. Yeah,
I think it's cool.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Yeah, but yeah, that's
kind of gives you an idea. Like, man, this would be really cool if I had my druthers.
Yeah, he's got a great story.
So the other thing I want to ask you about, like with the publishing, because you've published your own books. What? I mean, I think this would be a good story to share. But what kind of prompted you to want to publish these books with me with Valhalla Books?
Well, I originally had a publisher for my first 3-4 books, and then as the contract expired, I just put them out myself because I could do my own covers,
right,
and have a little more creative control of it. But with doing it when you do it yourself as an indie, it's just me, and like you say, getting out there and reaching readers. When you brought up the idea of doing Acquisitor through Valhalla, you guys, for me, that's just a force multiplier to be able to reach more people and work with a team to have multiple eyes on the book. Because I would hire out an editor for every book I did, And I have a set of beta readers that are pretty consistent and like to tear me up. But with you guys, with your team, I know Josh, I know Win, I know you, and I know that you guys all have a kind of the same goal in mind of just putting out good stuff. So that's it just seemed perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, I that's one of the things I like about doing that. We pull our resources and we work together, you know. Like with the editing process, you know, there's I don't know how to describe it, man, but there's some folks that I want us to be professional, and I feel like we can be professional without having to tear somebody down. You know what I mean? You don't have to, you know, you don't have to just sit there and butcher somebody, you know, because I mean, we all make mistakes, first of all, but you don't have to.
When I say that my beta readers like to tear me up, it's mostly because they're friends and they
Oh.
like to trash talk.
Oh no, I'm not talking about them at all. I wasn't even talking about that at all. I was just talking about like in general, like the publishing industry. Because I've worked with some editors before that they want to nitpick everything, and they feel like that's good editing, and then I don't feel like that's good editing though. I feel like, you know, I feel like if it's a necessary change, you know, because everything we do should be for the reader, right? Everything, like the story, everything we're doing, the cover art, everything we're doing, the publishing, all that packaging, everything should be for the reader, and that we're working towards giving, you know, the best experience possible for the reader. But I've seen that before too with some folks that they feel like they're, you know, that they're doing a great job by just trying to hack and slash everything that you're doing. And I'm like, no, that's just, you know, I'm not interested in that. I'm really, and like when I'm editing with somebody, when I'm working as an editor for somebody, I'm not trying to change their voice at all. I just want to improve, like, you know, other things. Like if it's a continuity issue, you know, like, hey, this doesn't add up, or something's missing here, or did you mean to, you know, but I would never want to change. My goal is not to change the author's voice. They don't want to hear me telling your story.
Yep.
You know, they want to hear you telling your story.
Yeah. And that's it goes both ways too. Cause I mean, authors, writers, we can have a tendency of really easily taking ourselves a little too seriously. So then, you know, when you have somebody else criticizing your work, if you're not prepared to have somebody slash your work up, you're going to miss something, and you can't do it all by yourself.
No, you can't.
But the good conversations, especially when me and Win were working on this book, is sometimes the cultural aspects of, you know, Charleston or police culture that I had in the Jackson Cole novels, he would have questions about, and I'd be like, yeah, we're just trash talking, that's normal stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just, that's where sometimes the author intent doesn't translate, and you know, you're on your set of rails, and you're like, well, everybody understands this because everybody I talk to, it comes from the same place. Then you get another perspective of somebody who has no idea, and they're like, well, yeah, I could have explained that better, you know?
Yeah, I had the same kind of feedback with some of my dialogue from Blood Thrasher.
But if you don't put your ego away, you're gonna miss something. It's not gonna be as good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I just I like to, like I said, I like to be professional where, you know, we can work with each other, because there's a difference kind of like dissecting something and saying, hey, let's figure this out, or this doesn't make sense to me, you know.
Yeah. And you need that. You really need that. But you need to be able to take it too, and not think that somebody's trashing you.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I think sometimes, you know, you just gotta roll with the punches, but also, you know, the goal is, I feel like, to be professional, you know, to put out the best quality product that we can, you know, put out the best quality book that we can, you know.
Yeah. Yep. That's always what you want. I mean, and then with the team, you got to have it's got to be a team sport. It's tough doing it on your own.
Oh yeah.
And you miss something because you think you're telling a story that's everybody can soak in, and when the editor comes up and you're like, I have no idea what you meant by this.
Yeah.
Now that I read it, I absolutely get that.
Yeah. And I'm like that too sometimes, like when I, like you were saying earlier, when I read my own stuff, I'm like, what was I thinking? Where was I going with that?
Yeah, yeah, yep. But no, especially working with Win, that guy really had some really good pointers. He's a good book coach. I think that's what everybody needs.
Yeah, I agree. I think Wynn is really solid, and he's a great guy too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, we were. It's kind of funny talking about that. We were working on. So he's doing red sounding, and we were working on like he's written a behind the scenes thing, and we kind of went back and forth with just what I was thinking would be a good structure for it, and so we had not a conflict, but we had just something that we had to work out, and I just called him up and we talked on the phone, and we just got it worked out, and it was interesting because we weren't like, I guess we weren't on the same page, but we communicated and we were able to rectify the difference, and we got back on the same page.
Yep.
And I think that's a big part of any kind of job or any kind of relationship you have with somebody. Anything that you're doing, is communication. Trying to, keep communication open, because I feel like 99% of most issues can be resolved with communication, negotiation, and compromise.
Yeah, that's the whole problem with the entire last year is, with teleworking and meetings by Microsoft Teams or Zoom. It's just awful. So much is lost when you're not actually talking to somebody face to face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people consider duress or whatever, but long period of extended stress, and but the goal of publishing books is to provide entertainment.
Yeah, the escape valve.
I don't want the reader being stressed out because they can't figure something out. They're like, "What is this?" Because that's when they put the book down.
Oh yeah.
If it's too complicated, or if it's just, if it's not like we were talking about space clowns earlier, when you're expecting like a detective story.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
Space
clowns out of nowhere.
They're like, huh? What?
Yeah. You want to make them think, and you want to make them work for it a little bit, but you don't want to take them completely out of the scope of reality.
Yeah. You want to say, hey, there's the road. You don't want to say, this is. And I'm sorry, somebody's trying to call in on me right now, but I'm not going to answer. You want to say like, hey, this is the road, but I'm going to guide you. I'm going to show you, but I'm not going to tell you what's all down the road.
Yep. And especially getting to the point of showing and not telling in a book.
Yeah.
It's a very important aspect. Just telegraphing. You can telegraph very easily without even knowing you're doing it.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that. All right, so we got to do the station announcements real quick. We'll be right back, everybody.
This portion of WR Bike Walk Savannah offers bicycle education programs for children and adults, including bicycle rodeos. Nationally certified instructors ensure that all education programs are safe, informative, and enjoyable for participants. They also offer customized programs for businesses and other organizations that are seeking to make bicycling and walking part of their employees' wellness programs. More information is available at bikewalksavannah.org.
All right, and just a little announcement from me about the studio and the show and the station. So WRUU is a community radio station, and we're all volunteer hosts. We don't get paid. We're not making any money off the shows, and we don't charge our guests for appearances or anything like that. We don't have commercial advertising sponsors, so the funds that we raise, normally we would do in-person events, and those are some of our bigger fundraisers, and we have generous donors who help us out with the studio costs and things like that. We haven't been able to do that, y'all. So if you're like the programming here, or you might like another program that we have on the station or whatever, go to wruu.org and consider making a donation. I mean, even a one-time donation or a monthly donation, whatever, floats your boat that you feel comfortable with. No pressure, but that's how we pay the bills. That's how we keep the lights on in the studio, and pay for our FCC licensing and new equipment and that kind of thing. And that's how we're able to provide programming like this and other programs by your generous donations. And it's super easy. You just go on wru.org, click on the donate button, and it's set up right there. So it's pretty hassle free, and we don't spam. I'll tell you something else. We're not going to sell your information, and we're not going to spam you. You might get an occasional email from time to time from the studio, like our studio manager or something like that. But it's never spammy. We're most of us are working people. We go to work. We do this like I work a regular job. I do this because I think it's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to guests like my friend John Stamp, about his new books and about writing and stuff like that. So check it out. And if you feel so inclined, go to wru.org and make a donation. So thank you. We can't do it without y'all. So thank you. But yeah, this is kind of crazy too, because I was thinking earlier, John, today I just hit my 3rd year anniversary of doing the radio show.
Oh wow!
Started doing it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was back in July, and actually not July, it was June. Golly. But started in 2018, so 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. So I just hit 3rd anniversary, but this is the 4th actual year that I've been doing the radio show in. So coming up on my 4th anniversary next year. But I just thought it was kind of funny because I was like, man, 2018 feels like it was, forever ago.
Yeah, it was like a decade ago.
Yeah. I mean, like, it does, like this last year has felt like dog years to me.
Yeah, it was a weird one, that's for sure. So,
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very flexibility, I guess, is the name of the game for 20 and 21.
Well, I think too, kind of tying it in with the writing and the publishing. Like I've done this radio show. I didn't quit doing it. What I did was I switched over to, instead of having mostly in-person guests, to having people. I call them on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also opened up, like I've been able to talk to a lot of people from like all over, but also publishing, put out the first anthology last year, put out Mark Allen Gunnell's book 2B this year. That's been doing pretty good. Got your books coming out. Josh Vasquez has his zombie novel series books, the first and second. He had published the director's cut with Valhalla Books, and then the 3rd book was the brand new, never before released one. We got your book coming out, your 2 books coming out here at the end of this week, Friday.
Yeah.
Then we
It's
got
growing, man.
Yeah, we got Ryan Dunn's poetry collection, the Midnight Collection. Red Sounding is coming out in October. My 3rd book, Blood Thresher, the 3rd book is going to be coming out. So, I feel like putting this stuff out, working on it, and like even we were talking about, you're going to start writing your new draft for the 3rd book or whatever for Jackson Cole novels.
We're gonna get there.
And we're looking at for like next year. We're already looking ahead for next year. I was talking to Bobby Nash last night, and he's going to be publishing a book with us next year. And I feel like that's one of the things that you don't have to necessarily put out a ton of work, but you have to be kind of consistent and try to finish things.
Yep.
Get them done, finish
game.
them.
Yeah, especially in the writing game.
Yeah. And it's going to be a progression. The new covers and the new book. I mean, like your books are probably the best versions of any books that I've published.
I appreciate that, man. Let's hope everybody thinks that.
I do. I mean, but I'm talking about like with anything that I have published, this is like so far the best, the best quality of everything. And I'm not saying that the other ones weren't good quality. I'm just saying, like, you learn as you go, Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's everything's got a little bit something new in it, It's a evolution.
I think it's a fun thing about writing too. But when you're writing a story, like going into the next Jackson Cole novel, you said that you have like an idea already that you kind of throwing around or whatever. I think that's so cool because that's how it starts. That's how it begins.
Yeah, it's another one that's been floating around in my head for like 3 years, and I just can't seem to figure out a way to wrap it up. It's kind of like Tarantino's True Romance.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a little bit of that, but with magic and demons and bad guys and cops. So
speaking of Quentin Tarantino, like he is really good at mashing together a lot of different scenes from different movies and then putting them together in a movie.
Yeah.
And so talking about like taking your character and then like remaking a scene from another movie, but you do it with your characters. And
I don't know. I hope I haven't done that.
No, not you. I'm talking about Tarantino's movies. He's done a really good job of doing that and making it into a new story.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, like so many like winks and nods and tributes to. I love that kind of stuff. I love like it's like with comic books, they always have these tribute covers. They're always like somebody's character in the same pose or cover as like a famous cover that was out in the past, like a Jack Kirby or McFarlane or somebody like that.
Yeah, just doing tributes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that guy's a master. He's especially the last one, the Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was very suspicious of that, and that man, he wrapped that thing up so tight. It was so good.
Have you seen Suicide Squad 2?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either, but Bobby and Josh were saying that it's really good. Like James Gunn was the director.
That guy does it. That guy does it right.
Oh yeah, and he started off with like Lloyd Kaufman with the Toxic Avenger stuff.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and so like it's so cool because I like that campy superhero-y type stuff where it's just kind of not cheesy, but just a little bit of cheese flavored campiness.
Yeah, I like that we've gotten to a point with that genre where we don't have to take ourselves like super serious.
Right.
It's dudes running around in like spandex and capes and like easy. There's room for comedy there.
Yeah. I'm going to the gym to relieve the pain.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
exactly. And you think about that when we were talking about that earlier. As a kid, you're like, Batman, that guy's the coolest dude ever.
Yeah.
But now as a 44-year-old, I'm like, I probably would not get along with Bruce Wayne very much. Like, it's like that guy seems like he would be zero fun to hang out with.
He's a little uptight.
Yeah, it's like
he's a little uptight. Yeah,
up, bro.
He's like that guy that always lowers his voice to try to act like he's got more bass. Like, hey. That's why there's so many memes and spoofs on the character. Like, what do you mean you burnt the coffee pot? How'd you do that? You didn't put water back in it? You're supposed to put water back in it. We got a Keurig machine, Jim.
Yeah, like it would have to be like a behind-the-scenes rough cut, but the sheer amount of times if Alfred would have to just roll his eyes.
Yeah, I'm not wearing the cowl for nothing, Alfred.
Yeah, like relax, dude. Oh, get it. You got a dark side.
I mean, like it's kind of weird, dude, because like talk about that. The anti-hero has been so popular the last 25 or 30 years or whatever. And I just think it's so crazy because, you got like this lawful good guy like Superman, and then you got like a chaotic good guy like Batman. I mean, I'm not a D&E expert. There's probably some out there like, it's not chaotic good, it's so-and-so good, blah, 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 blah. Like he's not even, he might be just lawful neutral, blah, blah. I don't get it. I'm just saying, guys, like they're both like crime fighters, right? But then people like the Joker movie, for example, it sold like $1 billion, right? Over $1 billion in ticket sales or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, everybody likes the bad guy.
Yeah, and that movie was all about like existential crisis and just a guy who was like a loser in life, and he just snaps and he turns into a criminal.
Well, my question is, and this might be obvious. I'm not the dude that like looks through the internet boards to talk about movies, but so
You're
the
safe. There's no
Joker-
neckbeards here, John.
the entire movie of Joker, did that happen in real life in that movie, or was that all in his head?
You know, that's the
entire
other
thing.
thing too. That's a great question. I don't know, because you know, everybody is a hero in their own story. Nobody's a villain in their own story.
Yeah, and all we see of him at the end is just run around in that crazy place in the asylum. So
Yeah, I mean, like,
it could have the whole thing could have been just a delusion.
and that's something else I've always wondered too. Not that you speak about that, but I always wondered if Bruce Wayne, like if Batman and the Joker and all the other stuff, was just like Bruce Wayne's way to deal with his parents being murdered. You know,
Like he ended up. Those are stories written by him as catharsis.
right? Like he invented this little, this whole little alternate, schizophrenic world. Of him being like the superhero that he couldn't save his parents, but he could save everybody else. So
Yeah. Well, he doesn't really save anybody. I mean, Batman should be the original anti-hero because he's, a felon, a very organized and well-resourced felon who runs around beating people up. Committing. he has no he has no authority for anything he does. So technically, he commits felonious.
He's a
assault
vigilante.
Every time he goes to work, he's committing felony level assaults.
Yeah, he's a total vigilante.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that thing about like collateral damage, like after like the Avengers or something like that leave a town, or like?
Oh yeah.
I'm like, man, and I saw one too. Gosh, it was so funny, but man, I can't remember what it was. They were talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and where like Falcon, helped save the the known universe and all that, and here he was having to do like a loan or something like that.
Oh yeah, he couldn't get a loan.
Yeah, I'm like, and you don't think about that kind of stuff where they're trying to tie in like real world problems that people have. With the superhero life, and it does kind of like become like an urban fantasy type thing. It's like, well, it's not necessarily magic, but there's magic in the Marvel realm, and there's science, and all that stuff too, or they're like attributed to science or genetics, DNA and all that, and you wonder like yeah, Batman would technically be a criminal in real life. They don't want people like that going around, committing mob vigilante violence.
Yeah. Think about it. Some dude shows up in a mask and just starts beating people up, even if they're bad guys. It's like, you still going to jail.
You jaywalked. Now you must pay justice.
Yeah,
what?
Batman
Where's that coming from?
Like,
like all of a sudden it's like you're trying to cross the street to go to your car. That's illegal.
Yeah, you would hope you get a warning. You would hope Batman would give you a warning instead of just pummeling you right in the street.
Yeah, no,
with no authority to do so.
He just leaves you a pulp on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Better luck next time, kid.
Yeah, you would think the Gotham PD chief would at some point just deputize him after 80 years of public service.
Yeah. And speaking of that, we got to do a service announcement here. WRUU, you're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And it's so funny because we were talking last hour about like the setup of the 80s cartoon stuff, where it was always like the good guys and the bad guys always had a new bad guy that was stronger than all the good guys, and they go through this, and then at the end of almost the end of the episode, the new good guy who can counteract the new bad guy shows up, and he counters that and saves the day.
Yeah, escalation.
Yeah, it just keeps going, right? And I always thought it was like so funny, like if you think about that kind of stuff, and like when we're talking about Falcon and the loan or whatever, like they never talk about like what these guys do for their jobs. Like as a kid, I was supposed to think, oh, well, this is what they do or whatever, but it's so unrealistic. I mean, like, I don't know. I guess that's the whole thing with the disbelief, like it's a fantasy escapism or whatever you want to call it,
That part is fun to think about, though. Like, what would their benefits plan be?
Yeah.
Or do they get 1099 because they're just contractors?
I mean, like whose dental plan is the Hulk on? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, who's gonna be able to fill a molar that's quite literally 12 inches around or something like that? Like.
Yeah. How do you get them hold still for that?
Yeah. I mean, much less what kind of drill bit would be able to, drill a cavity hole like that in the. It's just weird. Like that's the funny thing I think with being an author. Like our imaginations let us kind of little daydreams like that. Like what if,
Yeah, we get to do whatever we want because it's our world. We created it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think the cool thing about it, like when you were talking earlier about and we were talking about you brought up show don't tell. That I feel like it is a very challenging part of writing because you could just tell somebody like, oh well, Batman got busted because it turns out after 80 years he's actually a criminal.
yeah he's on the Gotham PD most wanted list consistently
right. Like Commissioner Gordon just keeps it under wraps, like and you think about that and you're like, oh, what's the fun in that? There's no fun in that. Like we were talking about earlier, like the thing with Superman. Can Superman save the day? Well, if I told you, well, at the end of it, yes, he does. You'd be like, well, I'm not going to read that. I already know the ending.
That's always the problem I had with Superman too. Is like, well, it's in the name. His name is Superman. Like, do I really need to open the book because his name is Superman? It's not like he can lose,
Yeah. I think one of the things too with any kind of like with sports, for example, like when I was a kid, I used to love watching baseball, listen to baseball, love watching baseball, and you knew the outcomes. A lot of times, you could kind of like predict it, almost like gambling, but not gambling, because of the statistics of like like the Reds versus the Braves or somebody like that, right? And you can say, well, out of the last 10 games that the Reds played the Braves, in an away game, they lost 8 out of 10, right? And so you kind of have an idea of how it's going to work out, but you don't know. So you tune in anyway, and you listen or you watch anyway, because you're like, well, maybe it's going to be different. Maybe they'll have a good game. Maybe maybe my favorite player will get up and hit a home run or something like that, or maybe my favorite pitcher might get a bunch of strikeouts or something like that,
Yeah, any given day. I think that's why we like sports so much. Is there's what the stats say, and then there's always those miracles that go down in history.
Yeah, like the Hail Mary,
Yeah. Yep.
So I just think it's cool, man. Like a storytelling, and it really it goes back to in my opinion. In my personal opinion here, I'm just talking a little bit about it's the human condition.
Oh, yeah.
We read these books that we can see. Not necessarily that we see ourselves as being like the demon slaying detective from Charleston type thing. You know what I mean?
That would be awful.
Yeah. But you could see yourself with the humor. You could see yourself with like having a crappy job that you have to do at work that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
You could see yourself having to deal with these difficulties or whatever. You could see yourself as like, like people like drama, but they don't like to deal with the problems themselves. They're like, oh, well, it's like soap operas used to be so popular. That hasn't changed. People just, the format's changed.
Yeah. Everybody loves other people's drama.
Right. They love the tea,
That's right. Yep.
So I think that's one of the cool things about like setting up these stories and putting like your characters in crazy just off the rails type problems. I mean like Jackson Cole and his partner, they don't want to be the freak police. They're like, man, what?
Yeah, I like that part of the hero's journey that they always talk about, like Joseph Campbell and all that stuff. That the first step is that hesitance. You got to overcome the hesitance.
Yeah.
And with those guys, it wasn't. I mean, there's a clear distinction in the book. It's not it's not overcoming hesitance. It's that there's no other option.
Yeah.
It's not like they can be like, you know what, I'm really on board with this plan. It's just that there's no other way. There's no way out but through.
It's like you just got to deal with the suck.
Yeah. So they don't charge with a smile on their face. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, all right, man, we're just going to get through this shift and go home.
Yeah. They're like, this is going to suck real bad, and we'll see what happens at the end.
Yeah. I think that mirrors life. I mean, that truly mirrors life.
There's a lot of situations that come across like that. So, yeah, it's just doing what eating, just taking a bite out of that elephant one at a time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, man, I've had so much fun talking with you the last couple hours.
Yeah, man, this is fun.
Just a real quick recap. You have your books coming out this Friday.
Yep, just in time for Labor Day.
Labor Day weekend.
Good beach reading.
Shattered Circle and Acquisitor are going to be out this Friday. You can go to johnstamppwriter.com or you can go to valhallabooks.com and get more information about it. The books are going to be on Amazon. They're going to be available as a PDF, or not a PDF, but an ebook first, right?
Yep.
And then they're going to be available as soon as possible. They're going to be available as paperbacks, and also as something new that Amazon's doing is they call it a hard case laminate, and it's basically a hardcover book without the dust jacket. And
I like that idea.
I do too. It reminds me of graphic novel, like comic book graphic novels.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I love the covers that Jeffrey Hayes did. Give him a shout out with plasmafiregraphics.com. So
yeah, that guy did awesome. The way that he was able to bring out those images just from the descriptions I gave him, were brilliant.
I agree. I think it just made the covers pop. I mean, like it brought the characters to life too. You know, it's like, hey, you got this Jackson Cole guy, and what he's just. Yeah, he looks just like a regular beat cop, whatever. So
yeah, and we had a discussion about that because I like my readers to be able to decide what they think these people look like. Like, if you look at the way I describe my characters, you might get the broad brushes, but I'm not going deep into detail, just because I want you to make your own. I want you to see that character as you think that they should appear.
Yeah.
I don't want to be forcing imagery, into the story. But he convinced me to go with that, and he got Jackson Cole pretty good, and he got Natalie King pretty good too. So
I love it, man. Well, thanks a lot, John, for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, it was fun, man. Anytime.
All right, y'all. Stay tuned because after this, we're going to be going back to your regularly programmed. It looks like we've got music coming up at the 5 o'clock hour, so that looks cool. And then Bill Cooper and the gang should be back next week. So